Welcome back. In this session, I would like to give you a quick introduction to the OPENROWSET function. Since Synapse Serverless Pool offers a function called OPENROWSET to read remote files without loading them into tables or creating external tables, OPENROWSET function allows us to read files from Azure Storage. It reads the contents of the remote data source. For example, a file in the Azure Storage and returns the contents of the file as a set of rows as it returns a set of rows with columns. We can use the function in the from class of a select statement as if it were a table or a view. You can use the OPENROWSET function to read files with formats such as CSV, Parquet, and Delta. As you can see on this SQL, the two mandatory parameters for the OPENROWSET function are the bulk and the format. The bulk option takes in the URL of the file at the folder that we are trying to access in the active storage. And the former expects one of the support that file formats such as CSV, Parquet, or Delta. Please note that these are the only three formats currently supported, but I'm sure there will be more formats added in the future. Apart from these two parameters, as you can imagine, we need to specify other optional parameters such as delimiter, whether the file contains a row, etc. to deal with CSV files. We'll start writing queries using OPENROWSET function in the next lesson to specify these parameters and query the data. But let me walk you through the documentation now so that you know where to look for additional information. Here we are in the Microsoft documentation under the section Ideal Synopsis Analytics, and I've selected the function OPENROWSET here. I leave the link for you in the course material. But let me walk you through this now, and there's a lot of information here for you to read. Please feel free to read it. But I want to show you the options for a CSV reader. So if you scroll to the syntax here, as you can see, the first one is for the Parquet and Delta. They are quite simple to read because the metadata about the column names and the definitions are stored within the file itself. It's quite easy to read those files, but this is the one we want to focus on, which is to read the CSV files. As you can see here, we've got the parameter bulk, which will have the path to the file of the folder in the ideal blob storage. And then you can optionally specify the data source. We'll talk about data source in a later session, but let's talk about the address here, and we specify the format as CSV. And then you've got two different things here which are both optional. But the first one is bulk options and the other one is reject options, and you've got the options you can specify under bulk options here. I see you can see these are the ones we were interested, which is things like fill, terminator, raw terminator, escape, character, first row, and things like that. So there are a few. And the one other important thing you want to notice is the passive version. So there are two different CSV possible actions available, one called 1.0 and the other one is 2.0. 1.0 has a richer in functionality, but it is lower that as the version 2.0 is limited in functionality, but it is more performant, so they're possible. Microsoft's recommendation is to use 2.0, but I will talk about both of them in the forthcoming lessons when we do our lab sessions. And the other thing you want to notice is the reject options. So you've got the option to specify a threshold for the maximum errors, and you can specify where you want your data to be returned if you exceed the threshold as well. So these are the parameters. And if you scroll down, there is detailed information about each one of them and you can read them through. So I would encourage you to read through this documentation, but I am going to talk you through most of these. In case you want to use something new or you want to look at some documentation, please come here. And this is quite useful. And that's the end of this session. I'll see you in the next one.